A variety of thought processes either facilitate or get in the way of problem solving. For example, we often use shortcuts, referred to as heuristics, otherwise known as mental rules of thumb, kind of these mental guidebooks or playbooks, as a way to solve our problems. And this is especially true for those that involve estimates of the likelihood that something might happen. And we try to do, come to this estimation of the likelihoods with as little effort as possible. For example, if you want to decide how likely it is that a class that you want to sign up for would be interesting, you might compare the characteristics of the class, whether it be the teacher or the materials that are going to be used, maybe the time of day that the course is taught, or what platform it's taught with if it's an online course. And you're going to compare that to what you normally or generally like. And if there is a good crossover or a representation of that information, you're more likely to engage in that particular course. The closer the fit, the more likely it is that you would expect the course to be interesting. This problem-solving method is called representativeness or representativeness heuristics. Essentially what we're asking of ourselves is how similar or representative one event is of a larger group of events that I have become accustomed to experiencing. Another shortcut or another heuristic is the availability heuristic. This involves judging the likelihood that an event will happen in terms of how readily I can bring myself or bring an instance of that into my own mind. So events that are more sharp in my mind or more vivid, they've happened more recently perhaps, these may be judged as being more likely to happen to me again, as opposed to things that are more distant in my past. I don't remember them that well. So if I've been dating somebody and they had a sense of humor that I really liked and they made me laugh a lot, I might be more inclined for the next person I might date to look for that type of a humor, as opposed to maybe a partner I had many, many, many years ago that wasn't as funny. So I'm not going to look out for that level of humor because it's older. I want something that's more available and more recent in my memory. So thus, based on availability, I might come to the conclusion that judicial trials are maybe relatively common and plea bargains are relatively rare. And actually, the reverse is really true. It happens to be that plea bargains are way more common, but news reports of trials are just much more common for us in the media. So we just would believe that trials are what more commonly happens as opposed to plea bargaining. Neither of the heuristics that we just mentioned are necessarily steer me towards a correct judgment, although they become more commonly used by us and hopefully get us to more of our correct answers in life. Okay, so much of what is studied with respect to thinking and problem solving are actually also subject to problems in judgment and problems in problem solving. So we have here a few types of biases. The confirmation bias is a process by which I'm looking for information to confirm what I already believe. So if I have a belief that a certain sports team is my preferred sports team, I'm going to look for data that confirms that that sports team is the best sports team around. Even if they're not ahead in the stats, I'm still going to confirm based on what my predisposing beliefs might be. Another common bias that happens with problem solving is a hindsight bias, whereby I face a particular problem. Let's say it's me thinking about how to study for an exam. And then after I get the results of my exam back, I have this hindsight bias where I look back in time and I say, well, now that the exam grade came in, I can look back in hindsight and critique how I approached the problem. But really, it's only because I'm looking in hindsight, as they say, a Monday morning quarterback or rear view mirror perspective. Finally, there's two other biases. I'll mention one. Availability bias is my tendency to base my solutions for problems on what information is available to me at that time. So it doesn't really give me the full breadth of knowledge that I might use to solve a problem, but merely what is at my disposal at the time. And this can cause problems in my ability to solve problems in my environment. Finally, another concept is the idea of functional fixedness, which is a method by which I become very limited in seeing the utility of things in my environment. So if I have a remote control that I have to replace the battery of, so I have one in my hand here, and if I have to loosen that screw, but I don't have a screwdriver, I might be very fixed and think that there is no way other than using a screwdriver to open up this remote control. But what about the penny or quarter that I have in my pocket that I can pull out and use as a screwdriver, as it were, in order to open up this particular remote control? We get stuck in functional fixedness, thinking there's only one way that something can function, without realizing that things have multiple functions beyond what they originally were intended for. So I hope this portion of the study program taught you some relevant information and reminded you of relevant information that you can apply not only for the purpose of this exam, but also for living your life more clearly and fully.